It was roses, roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway. The church spires flamed, such flags they had, a year ago on this very day. The air broke into a mist with bells. The old walls rocked with the crowd and cries. Had I said, good folk, mere noise repels, but give me your son from yonder skies. They had answered, and afterward, what else? Alack, it was I who lifted the sun, to give it my loving friends to keep. Not man could do have I left undone. And you see my harvest, what I reap. This very day, now a year is run. There's nobody at the housetops now, just a palsied few at the window set, for the best of the sight is, all allow, at the shambles gate. Or better yet, by the very scaffold's foot, I trow. I go in the rain, and, more than needs, a rope cuts both my wrists from behind, and I think by the feel my forehead bleeds. For they fling, whoever has a mind, stones at me for my year's misdeeds. Thus I entered, and thus I go. In such triumphs, people have dropped down dead, paid by the world. When dost thou owe me? God questioned. Now instead, 'tis God shall repay. I am safer so.
The author of the poem is Robert Browning. Robert Browning was an English poet and playwright whose dramatic monologues put him high among the Victorian poets. The Patriot is a dramatic monologue that comments on the rise and fall of heroes due to the crowd's unpredictable mentality. In writing this poem, Browning was influenced by his experiences of seeing heroes rise and fall through Italy's struggle for independence from Austria. I will break down my analysis of The Patriot by evaluating each stanza. In the first stanza, Browning uses highly sensory language as the reader's sense of sight, smell, and hearing is instantly captured through the sight of roses, smell of myrtle, and sound of ringing church bells. The repetition of roses, roses symbolizes the love, dedication, and happiness the crowd has toward the Patriot. There is a symbolic significance of the myrtle flowers as they have a lovely fragrance but a bitter taste, which is similar to the crowd's behavior of the Patriot who is initially welcomed and adored, only to be executed a year later. The alliteration of myrtle mixed in my path like mad further emphasizes and heightens the smell of the flowers as well. The house roofs are also being personified and presented as living beings. They are not static, but rather moving side to side to show the people jumping up and down in excitement to see the Patriot from the rooftops. The second stanza uses visual and sound imagery with the ringing of the bells that break the air into a mist to describe the festive environment. The old walls are personified and begin to rock violently with the crowd and cries, which uses alliteration to lend a dramatic intensity to the scene and reveal the madness of the people on the arrival of their Patriot. The sun stands for something which is unreachable or beyond access, which shows that the crowd is willing to do all that he asks for. They would willingly give him the sun and say, "What more could I do for you?" The crowd's response to such an outrageous demand shows the thoughtless nature of their actions, and a crowd that does not think could be potentially dangerous. The third stanza reveals a change in tone, from a celebratory tone to a sorrowful and doubtful tone, through the use of the word alack, which draws the attention to pathos as the Patriot is doubting his decision of leaping at the sun for his loving friends to keep. Leaping at the sun refers to the risks he took and the sacrifices he made to give his best to the people, but they forget the things he did for them. The reiteration of this very day emphasizes that just a year ago from today, the crowd was praising him, but now they are treating him badly. There is also an allusion towards a Greek myth of Icarus that is mentioned, and he is known for having attempted to fly to the sun, but the closer he got, His wings, which were attached by wax, melted off him. And this is relevant because his over-ambitious nature led him to failure, similar to the Patriot. In stanza 4, I noticed that the first and the fourth stanza are parallel to each other. In the first stanza, the speaker states that the house roofs seem to heave and sway. And in the fourth stanza, it states there's nobody on the housetops now. This shows the decline of the Patriot's fame and the fluctuating nature of public views. The fourth stanza also describes the present scene in which the lonely patriot finds himself deserted. The only ones present are the palsied few who are sick and cannot go to the shambles gate to see the patriot executed. Some people would even want to be at the scaffold's foot to get a better view of the execution. The fifth stanza provides a detailed description of the intense reaction of the people towards the patriot. There's dramatic irony in the situation of his popularity and his downfall. The people who once adored him now treat him as a traitor. There's also a biblical allusion towards the crucifixion of Christ as Jesus was welcomed on Palm Sunday and later crucified. The rain is metaphorical and refers to him being cleansed of his desire to please people and cleansed of sin before he died. The last stanza shows how meaningless public glory is. Thus I entered and thus I go uses antithesis to demonstrate the contrast in the patriot's status in society from a year ago to a year later. Alliteration is used in People Have Dropped Down Dead to emphasize that public opinion is unfair as they find defeats in even the greatest victories. The poem ends with a sense of relief as the patriot has accepted his fate and is optimistic that God will judge him fairly. Since he has not been awarded on earth, he believes God will repay him with his reward to heaven. Some may believe that the speaker is a true patriot, as he never blames anyone, even in his final moments. But the poem never highlights his misdeeds. In most of Browning's dramatic monologues, the speakers attempt to self-justify their actions, as we are only being told about his unjust treatment as the patriot sees it. Therefore, we must infer if his death was truly justifiable. My name is Gabriela Luna, and I am a student at Pembroke Pines Charter High School. I love to try new things and form long-lasting connections with people. I find it easy to establish relationships because I am truly trustworthy. I make certain to keep promises and follow through on commitments. Sometimes this trustworthiness can be taken for weakness, but I always keep family as my number one priority. I would do anything for them. The patriot didn't have a family to fall back on. The people who loved him so selflessly and claimed to love him in return ended up being the ones stabbing him in the back. This is my favorite poem because this message has helped me realize that people in life come and go, but family is forever.
It was roses, roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway. The church spires flamed, such flags they had, a year ago on this very day. The air broke into a mist with bells. The old walls rocked with the crowd and cries. Had I said, good folk, mere noise repels, but give me your son from yonder skies. They had answered, and afterward, what else? Alack, it was I who lifted the sun, to give it my loving friends to keep. Not man could do have I left undone. And you see my harvest, what I reap. This very day, now a year is run. There's nobody at the housetops now, just a palsied few at the window set, for the best of the sight is, all allow at the shambles gate. Or better yet, by the very scaffold's foot, I trow. I go in the rain, and, more than needs, a rope cuts both my wrists from behind, and I think by the feel my forehead bleeds. For they fling, whoever has a mind, stones at me, for my year's misdeeds. Thus I entered, and thus I go. In such triumphs, people have dropped down dead, paid by the world. When dost thou owe me? God questioned. Now instead, 'tis God shall repay. I am safer so.